Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched Sonic the Hedgehog. Let's talk about it. Sonic the Hedgehog is directed by Jeff Fowler, and this is an infamous film because, of course, as many of you guys will know, last year we got the first look of Sonic the Hedgehog in this live action iteration of this character, and many of us reacted in pretty much the same way, which was just utter shock and disbelief at how terrible the character looked. Like, there are so many conspiracy theories surrounding the first version of this character. Some people saying that it was just a test run and it was just there to build up hype for the film, and others saying that they just really had no clue over at Paramount Studios and they produced this monstrosity for viewers to see. And of course the internet reacted accordingly, slaying this film, dragging it through the coals. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite as fun for the animators who had to work probably double time, probably overtime, to fix this film and get it released for the new release date of February 2020. So we finally got a chance to actually see this film, and I have to say that whilst there was a lot of hype surrounding it, especially because of that infamous first trailer, I personally wasn't the most excited for this film, purely because I'm not the biggest Sonic the Hedgehog fan. I don't really play the games, I don't really watch the animation. I used to actually before when I was really young, but now he's not really a character that I'm very much attached to. So I'm just looking at this film from the perspective of someone who's not really that attached to the character, but is interested to see what ultimately happened to this much maligned film. And I have to say, I had a really fun time with it. So we're going to get into this one. I'm going to be diving into the good and the bad as per usual. Just know that overall, I did have a fun time with this one. Surprisingly, I was expecting this to be a Detective Pikachu Part 2. I liked elements of Detective Pikachu from last year, but overall I was kind of disappointed with the overall product, with the overall result. But this is something that I really could get down with, and there are many reasons why, which we'll get into. But I am very, very happy to say that this was a gamble that Paramount took and very much needed to win. And they could come out on top with this one, especially considering the opening weekend box office. I mean, that was surprisingly big for this film. And Paramount definitely needs a win, because when it comes to the IP wars of the studios, Paramount is very much at the bottom or near the bottom. So I'm glad to say that I really enjoyed this film. Let's get into the reasons why. I have to say, before we even touch on the animated character, let's talk about the human characters. Of course, we have a return to form for Jim Carrey, who is just fantastic. He is brilliant here. Now listen, this isn't the most artistic, the most dramatic of performances. He knows exactly what kind of film he's in. Everyone knows what kind of film they're in, but he works so well as Dr. Robotnik. Oh my goodness. His physical acting, as well as what he's saying, as well as how he says it, his facial movements of course are legendary, but his physical acting in this film is so brilliant. It's fantastic. Like, he definitely embraces the robot aspect of Dr. Robotnik, and I think he's perfectly cast here, because whilst you're dealing with this character of Sonic who's just so out of this world, and he's just been dropped into this very regular human type environment, you have the character of Dr. Robotnik who just acts as a balance to kind of remind you that no, none of this makes sense, this is all crazy, but you're still having a good time going on this journey. And I fully appreciated Jim Carrey's performance here as someone who can balance out the absurdity of having a blue hedgehog who can run really fast as your main character. Also, the styling around his character was also fantastic. I know that it is inspired by the character of Dr. Robotnik from the games and the animation, but the way that he was styled in this film, from his hair and his makeup and his costume, everything looked so slick and perfect. Like, I really think they did a good job with Dr. Robotnik here. Minor spoiler, if you were waiting for Eggman to appear in this film, I would just say that you'll be waiting a while. I was surprised at how long it took to actually get Eggman, and we didn't actually get much of him. We just get the beginnings of him. And personally, I actually preferred Dr. Robotnik because, like I said, he's this balance between being in the real human world whilst also embracing the absurdity of this entire situation about a character who's, again, blue and a hedgehog and can run really fast. I feel like Dr. Robotnik fits really well in that middle lane, whereas Eggman is just full on nothing makes sense, everything is crazy, and I don't think the audience is quite ready for that yet, especially maybe the younger audiences or audiences that aren't as familiar with this franchise. But Jim Carrey isn't the only human in this film. You also have James Marsden, who's really good here. He does a great job of being able to convince us as viewers that he is actually connecting with this animated fake creature. I think he works really well in the film in terms of, grounding it within reality whilst at the same time embracing, again, that absurdity. He is the character that bonds with Sonic the most and kind of grounds him in human emotions the most. And then, of course, you have his wife, played by Tika Sumpter, and I think she's just so cool. And the reason why I think I was so impressed with this character is because I've seen what a female love interest type character looks like in a film like this, and it was from Detective Pikachu from last year. I remember saying last year that I wasn't a big fan of the female character from Detective Pikachu because she just didn't feel real. She didn't have much substance to her. Even though she was written to be a smart detective-like character, there was no real substance to what she was saying. She was very two-dimensional in that way. Whereas when it comes to Tika Sumpter's, wife character, she could have just been another dismissive kind of token black female character, but instead they've kind of made her a bit more fun and a bit more energetic. It doesn't feel like she's being dragged along and bringing everyone else down with her sourness and dourness. Like, she feels like she's a part of the team, and I really, really liked that. I also really enjoyed her sister. Her sister's hilarious. I love how sassy her sister is. She's definitely more of like a stereotypical black woman in this film. But I think it works because you have the balance of the two sisters. I think the fact that you have Tika Sumpter's character being a bit more reasonable, a bit more on James Marsden's side. You don't have both of them ganging up against him for helping Sonic, so it's much more palatable. And also it's in small doses and it actually works. Like, the comedy actually works. Now, of course, let's talk about the star himself. Yes, we have our first ever live action film starring Sonic, who is animated, but still it's a live action film. I really enjoyed the depiction of this character. I think he's just so fun. He's so likable. They also gave him a lot of heart. They made a point of giving him some heart and giving him some kind of pathos in the character, and really showing how lonely he is, and his isolation is a really big point of contention when it comes to his film and his character development and his relationship and friendship with James Marsden. So I really appreciated those aspects of the character. He wasn't just like a laughing stock or a gimmick. Like, he actually had some heart to him. I think you could see them puppeteering the whole situation. Like, it wasn't seamless, but I appreciated the effort, and I appreciated giving the character a few more layers than, say, a Pikachu from Detective Pikachu last year. Having said that, I definitely think that this character borrows a few aspects from different characters within, let's say, speedster folklore. He's definitely not the most original character out there, but I think overall it makes for a really cool character, and a character that kids can get behind and adults aren't, clawing their eyes out whilst watching his story. Speaking of kids, this is very much a kids film. Like, it definitely skews young, but actually I think it's a bit more cleverly written than I expected, because whilst it does skew young and the kids in the theatre were having the time of their lives, there are still a few like adult jokes in there, and jokes that are geared towards like older people, perhaps older fans of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise or the character, and just parents in general. Like, there are a few quirky little jokes in there that make it a bit more universally palatable. And finally, when it comes to the good parts of this film, I will say that I very much enjoyed their use of music here. There were some really cool sequences where the perfect songs were used, and of course I am referring to that Jim Carrey dancing sequence, which I won't say too much about, but again, it's just fantastic physical acting. It was perfect. I loved it so much, and I'm addicted to that song now. I definitely appreciated how they took that creative license in order to really bring those characters to life. In the case of Sonic especially, that they really wanted to highlight his powers and really wanted to show them off, and they did this through really funny sequences, especially at the beginning where you have the turtle. That was hilarious, or tortoise. And then you also have that sequence at the bar, which was very reminiscent, very familiar, but still, like, you could see the effort that they put in to really show off just how powerful and how cool this character is. And again, a character that kids can get behind. All right, now let's get into some of the things that I didn't quite love about this film. And firstly, as I've highlighted several times now, it's not the most original film. There's definitely some referencing. Perhaps you could go as far as say copying of some other films or other franchises that explore the ability to run really, really fast, or any speedster character for that matter. Of course, I'm talking about The Flash, I'm talking about Quicksilver. You have that same sequence where Sonic is playing table tennis against himself. You also have that slow-mo sequence at the bar, and there's a couple of them actually that kind of just highlight just how fast he's going. That's definitely reminiscent of the Quicksilver scene in X-Men Days of Future Past. It's not quite as artfully crafted as that famous scene, but they definitely are referencing that. And I think the fact that they even have the Flash comic books on display there, I think at least kind of softened the blow in terms of their referencing or copying, because it's like they're acknowledging the fact that this character is definitely drawing from other speedsters from other media. And speaking of other media, like, this isn't a good or a bad point necessarily, but there is a lot of referencing here just in general. There's a lot of name dropping here. I think they name drop like the MCU, they name drop DC characters, like I said, the Flash, like they name drop a lot, and it's so surprising to me. Like, I don't even know if this is an IP issue where you can actually say these things, like you can talk about other franchises like that. But I was really surprised because, like I said, Paramount isn't exactly the IP king when it comes to these studios. Like, these IPs are owned by other studios. Is Sonic just allowed to name them like that? I was a bit surprised by that. But anyways, but what was a down point for me was the ending. I will say that the film kind of lost me in, say, the latter half, maybe the last third. I just don't think it was as impactful as the beginning. It really started off on a good note. It really started off on a powerful note, actually. But it just kind of went a bit, you know, downhill from there. And I don't think that the climax and the fight, the ultimate battle between Dr. Robotnik and Sonic was just as powerful as it could have been. I think it very much took place in a Thor, the first Thor setting, where it was like a New Mexico setting. It's very like, you know, local town. There's not really much happening there. It's very focused on what's happening between Dr. Robotnik and Sonic, and everyone else is just kind of standing around watching. So that was a bit anticlimactic. But other than that, I do think that the film does hold up. Although overall, I wouldn't say that it's the best film ever made. Perhaps it's the best film based off of a video game character. Like, I know that that's a very big thing within the video game community. Like, when are we gonna get a good film based on a video game character? And there have been a few that have been okay, but I think this is a possible contender for being one of the best, because I did very much enjoy it, even though I don't think it was spectacular. So with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and give Sonic the Hedgehog a 6.5 out of 10. Like I said, I really enjoyed this film, and I know that a 6 may sound low considering how much I've hyped this up, but it's mostly out of surprise. Again, I wouldn't say that it's one of the best films ever made. I mean, we're talking about the 1917s and Parasites of the world also being compared on this channel, so I'm gonna hold off on giving this film a 10 or a 9. But I will say that I was very much surprised by what Paramount was able to do, especially considering that they had to reanimate the entire character, which I do think was a huge improvement from what we got before. Oh, if we had to watch that other version for an hour and a half, no, absolutely not. I was happy to see them actually get a win. Well done, Paramount. You do that thing. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys what I thought of Sonic the Hedgehog, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of the film down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.